Okay, I need to talk about the quality of life difference between here in Malaysia and back home in the United States of America. It's much different than you'd probably think. It's much different than people are led to believe. The way that we live in America and just the quality of life overall. Now, I spent over 30 years in America. Grew up in Philadelphia, 2 hours from New York, ended up moving to New York City, and spent the last 6 years or so in New York City. And New York is its own beast. It's completely different than the rest of the US. But I have a bit of a grasp on the rest of the US as well. Spent time in Los Angeles, I've traveled around, but I just want to compare the baseline things. Cost of living, cleanliness, crime. These are the things that really impact the quality of life. These are the most important things for me. So when it comes to cost of living, it has become almost impossible to survive in America on a low wage, let's say, on a normal wage almost. You can survive, yes, but you can barely live. Now, what I mean by that is you can go to work day in and day out, you can come home, you can afford your rent and your food, assuming you have a job, which is also not so easy to come by some places. It's becoming more and more difficult to actually land a job that pays decent. And so this is, as a single guy, I'm mostly talking from the perspective of a single guy. If you have a family, that just adds such another level of difficulty to the whole thing. So yeah, America has become very difficult in that regard. The economy is bad. Things are not great in that regard. Now, coming to Malaysia, it's a polar opposite. I'm not going to go and say, oh, Malaysia's so cheap or this or that. I know people don't like when I say it's cheap here, even though I don't say things like this coming from a Western mindset or comparing it to Western wages. I live on a salary that of the average Malaysian person or less, no more than that. And so I have quite a perspective of similar to what a local makes, the average local. Maybe this is more in Kuala Lumpur. Of course, the wages get less as you go around the country, but not everywhere. And so, yeah, Malaysia is affordable. Kuala Lumpur is affordable. Here in Penang, it's affordable. I make $1,000 a month, roughly. And I can live a good life here. It's a whole different thing. It's a night and day difference to America. And I assume the same to Australia and the UK and Canada, which are quite similar to the US in costs and also in other parts of life. It's very similar. Now, not everything is about money, but you need money in order to live day to day comfortably and not stress. And so money tends to consume people, and money tends to dictate most people's choice of where they live. Back in America, people seek out the cheapest states and cities and will oftentimes move their whole family to a different state. They'll leave the rest of their family, extended family, and take their husband or wife and kids and go somewhere a little cheaper but stay in the US. This has happened in my family, and it's pretty common. It's just people grow up in areas which they realize as they become an adult are unlivable. New York City, even like Philadelphia, for example, super expensive. Very expensive cities to live in a decent apartment. You're looking at spending $2,000 a month or more for a studio in Philadelphia, oftentimes. New York, same thing, more, $3,000 per month. Put that into perspective, it's crazy. 15,000 ringgit per month for a studio apartment. It's crazy. Of course, you can find that kind of thing here, but it's not the norm. It's not common. It's not what you would expect to pay. You're finding places here for $200, $300, $400 US. You can get a nice place in most areas in Malaysia. It's just the reality. It's a complete difference. So for me, when it comes to costs, it's much more manageable here, and that alone ups the quality of life tenfold. I can eat how I want to eat. I can live in a decent apartment, and I have extra spending money. I can save money. There's no saving money back home. There's no saving money. So that's the biggest thing, cost of living. Let's talk a little bit about the people. Now, I'm not going to sit here and trash Americans, say Americans are bad or anything like this, but as a whole, as a generalization, especially in New York City, if you are walking around, if you're going about your day, you are very rarely interacting with other people. You are very rarely having these positive micro interactions throughout your day. Of course, it can happen and you can force it, but in general, people are in their own world. They're in their own bubble. They are not super smiley and cheery all the time. It's a byproduct of life there. It's just how things go. And I myself notice I will start to act more like that being around it. And so everyone feeds off of each other's energy, and it becomes a little bit cold. It becomes cold. You know, if you are Malaysian and you visit the US, especially in one of the bigger cities, you will feel a completely different feeling than you feel here, even in Kuala Lumpur, even in the thick of it, in the busy city. It's different, you know, it's different. And I think American people are great. You know, there's no problem with Americans or any one type of person. You know, it's more cultural, it's more how we become from living there. You know, you take most Americans and you bring them to Malaysia, or you meet other Americans here, it's a whole different feeling. I get a whole different feeling talking to Americans here versus talking to Americans back home. It's just different. Now, of course, seeing somebody else, meeting somebody else, coming from where you come from in a foreign country, you know, it's easier to connect. We have some mutual thing to talk about and connect on. And maybe we're also going to be more like-minded because we're both the types who are traveling across the world. You know, we are not the average American. We are not the typical, maybe basic American that you would come across. And so, yeah, maybe the Americans that you meet here, different than the Americans you would meet back in America. For the most part, you know, and it's just the truth. So here I have such an overwhelmingly positive experience with the people in general. On a day-to-day basis, my interactions, I have just many social interactions, many conversations that boost my happiness levels, that boost my quality of life. Having these interactions on a daily basis is important. You know, you walk away from each one of those moments feeling better, feeling good, feeling positive. And it makes me realize how few of those moments I was having throughout my life in general. You know, it comes to, you know, you don't realize it until you're here. You don't realize it until you're living somewhere like Malaysia that, oh wow, things can be different. Things, you know, social experience, the social whatever can be much different than what I've come to know. So it's cool. It's really cool, and it's refreshing, and it brings some new positive feelings to life. I'll say that. So far, cost, the people, two huge factors that are going to determine how happy you are in life. And I think happiness is kind of similar, equal to quality of life. You know, what else do you really want other than to be happy, content, healthy? And so, yeah, so far, Malaysia is the winner. Now, I want to talk about the food as well, because one of the big things that keeps me coming back to Malaysia, keeps me in Malaysia, is the food. I love the food here. However, the food in America is very good as well. There is such a diverse just so much different food there, and it's high quality that you might find growing up in America and going somewhere else, it could feel a little bit difficult sometimes. Like you've lost access to a certain variety of food and a certain level of quality that we become used to. Again, having spent many years in New York City, the food quality there and the choices that you get, it's out of this world. It's something completely different. We got a little bit of work going on here. Sorry for that. But of course, New York City is a food city. It's a foodie's dream. It doesn't matter if you're Malaysian, if you're all about Malaysian food, and then you take a trip to New York City, you will get the feeling of, oh wow, this is special. This is a cool food scene. And it's not just New York, actually. Across the US, there's very good food, very, very delicious food. So food becomes more of a preference. Food it's quite a preference. But besides preference, there's also access. How much access do you have to different cuisines and to high quality meats, produce? What is the access like? I think both Malaysia and the US have a similar access to high quality food. You will get a bigger diversity in somewhere like New York City, but head to a smaller town in the US and some of that diversity goes away. You're not finding then quality Thai food, quality Greek food, and then be able to go down the street and find quality, Latin American food. It might be more spread out and it might be more difficult. You may not have a good Greek restaurant in your town. So yeah, more from a perspective of New York City, we're a little bit spoiled. We're a little bit spoiled by really good food. This guy's squirting me with the hose right here. It looked like he was playing around trying to squirt me with the hose, but I think he's just cleaning. Yeah, food, Malaysian food is so good. We don't really have much Malaysian food in America. Even in New York City, you'd be hard pressed to really find a lot of Malaysian food. You could seek it out, and there's probably some super top tier restaurants that you can pay a little bit of money for and find it, but it's not abundant. We have more Thai food. Thai food is a more westernized thing. It's just more popular for us. But again, it's not quite like Thai food in Thailand, and the Malaysian food you can find there, it's not going to be like Malaysian food here in Malaysia. So yeah, for food diversity, America is very good. It maybe even beats Malaysia. But to me, for the quality of food, for the price that you pay, Malaysia is far, far superior. A lot of it, again, comes down to money. It comes down to cost. If you can't get that food at a good rate, at a cheap price, again, I shouldn't say cheap. If you can't get that food at a reasonable price on a day-to-day basis, then that's tough, right? And so I think Malaysia wins yet again. Now we are 3-0 Malaysia. I don't want to sound like I'm just anti-America here. I'm truly not. And I value the country that I'm from, and having grown up there, I think America has become more problematic in recent years and more difficult to live in, but it once was, one of the best places, and yeah, it was a great place to grow up. I'm thankful for that. But there's just a lot of things that once you leave, you start to realize, oh, maybe there are better options out there. Maybe there are some places that are better fit for me and better fit for a lot of people, So let's talk about one of the biggest things, and that is crime. Something that you don't think about as much here in Malaysia. You don't need to think about it as frequently. It doesn't need to be at the forefront of your mind when it comes to safety. Now, of course, anything can happen anywhere, but there's a complete difference to how it feels. For example, in America, at night, pretty much on any side street, you're walking alone, it's quiet, there is a feeling of, oh, I need to make sure there's nobody behind me, or I need to be very aware of what's going on. I need to be cautious of where my wallet is, my phone. And again, you should be conscious here as well. So I don't want it to sound like I feel like, you can just not care in Malaysia. You're safe wherever you are. But by comparison, it feels like that. By comparison, it's such a difference that, if this feels like one of the safest places you could ever be. And now Malaysia is a very safe place. There is not gun violence and violent crimes happening on any type of regular basis, rarely ever. It happens, but if you're not involved in anything illicit, you are very unlikely to experience any serious issues. I think the worst thing, the most common things you'd be likely to experience, while still very uncommon, would be, getting robbed, something like that, getting your phone snatched. But it's very uncommon, maybe certain little pockets in Kuala Lumpur or places. Now, again, I don't know everything. I've only been here for a few months, but this is just the feeling that I get. And from doing my research, you will see some things online that one of the most dangerous places in Malaysia, or even in Southeast Asia, most dangerous place, Kuala Lumpur. To me, when I read that, it feels crazy. It feels insane, It's because it feels like one of the safest places I've ever been, one of the safest places I've ever spent time. I can walk at any time in the night, 4 a.m, and there's people around. Even if there's not, it just, it does not feel like I'm in danger, like somebody is going to pull a gun on me and ask for my wallet, Now, the contrast, United States, I have been held at gunpoint before and robbed. I've had multiple experiences where I was, walking late at night and somebody was sketchy nearby. Somebody was maybe following me or something like that nearby. So, someone who's borderline homeless, and just giving you a weird feeling, This happens frequently. And I'm a man who's kind of sizable. I'm a bigger guy as well, so just imagining as a woman walking alone in the night in New York City or most places in the US, it would not be a good feeling. It would not be a safe feeling at all. And it's not safe. It's not recommended. You don't want to take the subway at night as a woman in New York City. You really don't. Even if you are not getting robbed or something, you're not getting, at the very least, there's some questionable, sketchy, creepy type stuff that will go on. Guys exposing themselves or talking to you and backing you into a corner where you don't really know what to do. Just really weird, creepy things that happen with drunk people on a very regular basis. Every single woman that I know, every female friend I have in New York consistently has weird experiences with men in the city, and when they're going out at night and stuff like that. It's too common, it's too common. They usually will stick together, at least 2 or 3 girls together, something like that, just to make it a little bit harder for somebody, just to make it feel a little bit less approachable for some creep, But it's bad. It's serious. It's bad. And this is not the only thing that crime entails. When we talk about crime, how about the crazy amount of shoplifting going on? The amount of grocery stores that are just being looted across the United States and being forced to close. Grocery stores closing, almost all of the malls in America just being looted, being stolen, all the goods stolen, and having to close down. It's been in the news, especially in recent time, so much that I'm not even there now, and I see it and I hear about it from people here. When people hear about America, now they start to think about crime. they start to think about, oh, things have gotten a little bit out of hand. Of course, the news will paint a certain picture and make things look worse than they are. But in this case, things are pretty damn near close to what you're seeing in the news when it comes to crime like that. It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. I feel like I left, back in November at a time that maybe 6 months ago, it was already bad, but things have gotten worse. Things have gotten much worse since I left even. And so it's just the reality that we are in now. It is the reality we are in. And, there's a reason a lot of people from America are moving overseas or aspiring to leave, come to Southeast Asia, try to figure out a way to make money online. I mean, if you would have told me that I'd be doing YouTube, making daily travel vlogs, maybe 10 years ago, I would have been like, what are you talking about? If you would have told me that I was looking for a way to leave my country and make money online, sure, it would have sounded enticing, but I wouldn't have felt like it was too realistic. I had always planned on building a life in America, in New York City, building a big business, something like that. And over the past 10 years, that started to change more and more and more. I visited Southeast Asia. I started to see a different world out there and realize, hey, maybe America's not the best place. Maybe it's not for me, right? Yeah. I think the last thing I really want to talk about, the last important thing is just cleanliness in the city. Again, even Kuala Lumpur, busy, bustling city, just 10 times cleaner than New York City, 10 times cleaner than even Philadelphia, even most cities in the US. Now, there are some pockets of like very clean, like very boring, plain Jane, clean neighborhood, nothing going on. It exists in America, but you're not finding a bustling city, a very cultural area that stays clean or is well taken care of. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. Maybe loud truck. Maybe, people think Los Angeles, for example, it's super wealthy, it's Hollywood, it's millionaires, it's big homes. It's probably super clean, right? Wrong. You have the Hollywood Hills, you have these multi-million dollar, hundreds of millions of dollars, some of these insane estates and mansions. And in their small area, their kind of gated area, it's probably clean. But you go just a few minutes outside of that, you step outside of that, and there are homeless people, there's tents, it's dirty, there's human feces on the ground. I mean, it's really bad. There's no way to escape it unless you are mega rich and you kind of put yourself in a bubble somewhere. And who really wants to live like that? I mean, not me. And so, comparing that to somewhere like here where it's just clean, the garbage is disposed of properly, the subway system is clean, the train system is clean, it feels good to get on it, the air feels fresh, there's not rats and roaches on the ground everywhere you go. Again, a very New York thing, but it's also in many other cities in America. So yeah, it's just refreshing to be somewhere that is clean. And you wouldn't maybe expect it. People think Southeast Asia, it's just going to be very, very dirty no matter where you go. But it's, all of Southeast Asia is not the same, not even close. So yeah, Malaysia specifically, very clean. The air is good, and yeah, it feels good. It makes you want to be clean and live clean because it's just the vibe that you get here. And not everywhere, of course. Again, it's like a busy place. It can be a busy place, and so things will get dirty, but it gets cleaned up. It gets cleaned up very quickly. And yeah, I mean, this is my experience so far. All of this, just know it's my experience of being here for a few months. I'm not trying to come off as an expert or anything like that. I just want to give like a comparison from growing up in America and then coming here. You know, I've spent time in. Hello, how you doing? Good.
Hello, how are you?
Good, good.
Good. Hello, hi.
America. I'm making a video about the quality of life in Malaysia versus America. That's the video. Yeah. I prefer Malaysia.
YouTuber, right?
YouTube, yeah.
Okay, vlogger.
If you want to search, it's Ben Fisherman.
Ben Fisherman.
Ben Fisherman.
Okay.
Okay, take care, okay? Bye-bye. This is funny. Yeah, that's it. That's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed this little comparison. You know, drop a thumbs up if you did. Make sure you're subscribed to my channel, and I will see you in tomorrow's vlog.